Good tea time, my dear strangers. Welcome back to Brenda's crafty-handed world. Recently, I was reminded that I'm bringing home an endless amount of old, broken, and discarded junk. Some might scornfully call me a trash picker, but I like to think of myself as a treasure picker. I see the often overlooked value in things. Usually, all they need is a little fix-up to be what they once were. Sometimes they need a complete overhaul to be something even better. And sometimes they need to be repurposed in something new. And since I have so much stuff done and planning to do, I thought it deserves a dedicated series. So here comes the treasure picker. Today, I'll be doing a complete overhaul on this little tabletop mirror toy vanity, which I found discarded by the dumpster. It didn't have much going on for me, but it was not truly broken or dirty, so it felt wrong to leave it behind. It had a few minor flaws, but what's more, it had a potential. So I adopted it and brought it home. First, I washed it thoroughly with the cleaner, and then took a closer look at what needed to get done. Then I closed my eyes and imagined myself a couple of centuries ago with a beautiful vintage French mirror vanity. But back to reality. The heart knob on the drawer is a bit childish, so that's the first thing to go. I expect it's just glued on, so let's try knocking it off with a putty knife. Well, that was easy, no leftover glue, so I just cleaned it with the sandpaper. The hinges are flimsy, cheap and worn. They need to go too. It looks like someone couldn't decide where to drill the holes. Normally, I would fill in all the cracks and holes, but I was so impatient to start. Fortunately, it didn't cause any problems down the road. I decided to gain more time for color picking by painting the vanity with Annie Sloan's original white chalk paint. I've never had any coverage problems before, but Minnie was very stubborn, and soon I was regretting I hadn't used a primer instead. As I was planning on decoupaging the inside of the drawer later, I painted it with old ochre, which thankfully provided more coverage than white. Vintage French reminds me of decorative moldings and trimmings, so I went through my box of silicone molds and picked some I liked. I also noted how they need to fit the vanity dimension. Some I liked were beautiful, but too thick or large. I started by trimming the edges with a simple twisted rope trim. I'm using the leftover dew and dry clay from a previous project. It works well with molds and it's easy to take out. I like to push the clay in the form with a palette knife to get rid of the air bubbles and get all the fine details. Then I scrape the top flat before removing it carefully from the mold. I think mitering the corners really fits this type of trim. It works out great with the rope angle and looks very natural. I glued it with the PVA glue. And because the trim wasn't long enough, I simply connected and blended two pieces together. As for the side panels, I found this lovely delicate mold, like it was meant to be. If you by any chance know who made it, please let me know. I hate ordering molds and getting fakes without appreciating the designer. I'd rather pay more for the original, which is usually more precise with finer details anyway. I usually don't use cornstarch in my molds, but if you use a different clay, you might need to. I bent the mold or flip it upside down and carefully peel the design out. I prefer gluing the designs before the first paint coat or directly on a primed surface, but as I said, I got a bit impatient and ahead of myself with the first color on this vanity. I applied a second coat of original white after the clay was not too soft anymore. It helps to reduce cracking while the clay is drying. I made 2 other even more delicate decorations for the vanity sides. I'm always trying to spread the glue evenly, getting it all around the edges so the design sticks well. I imagine vintage French as being decadently over-decorated and opulent, so I'm adding even more ornaments at the back side of the mirror and at the front side of the drawer. I'm also trimming the tops of both side panels with the rope trim to tie everything together. And again, I'm slowing down the drying and eliminating cracking with a coat of chalk paint. I would like to get a really chippy look this time, so I'm going to sprinkle the vanity directly with salt wash powder and then lightly spray it with water for the powder to set. Then let it dry completely before applying the next paint coat. I also rubbed a candle wax here and there, around the edges and over raised areas where I thought some natural wear should show. One of the typical vintage French colors is blue, and I thought it would be much more interesting than just white. So I decided to go for Aubusson blue with the next coat. It's actually quite a lovely color. I was not worried about getting full coverage, but I was being very careful over the salt wash as not to smear it all flat. I like to apply the paint in a crisscross manner to get more texture and brush strokes. And I'm using a smaller brush to get better into the ornaments. When the paint was dry, I rubbed more candle wax here and there over the similar areas and applied a coat of Svenska blue as the main vanity color. I left the inside of the drawer opening in Aubusson blue. It's hard to decide what effect to go for, when to stop or keep going in your project. There are often many stages in a creative process when you think of, oh, that looks great, should I go on and possibly spoil it? Or you might get to the point of ugly duckling when you think it couldn't be any worse. But remember, there is no right or wrong. What truly matters is whether you like it or not. And if not, then just keep going. It will finally turn out well for you. Sometimes it's the mistakes and accidents that bring out the best in art. When the paint was dry again, I took my putty knife and scraped off all the salt wash peaks to create a nice chippy look. I enjoy this distressing process when all the unintentional flaws blend with the intentional ones. This vanity was an unusual experience for me. I had so many ideas in my head. I wanted to decorate it with everything, which is usually not the best idea. Usually I just have an idea, but this time I had all the ideas. Well, I decided to sort them out while working on the project. I was dying to try my new Queen Bee stamps by IOD and black ink. I picked the one that reminded me of the manufacturer's label and placed it on the back side of the vanity. Looking back, I should have used more ink and no acrylic block to get a better imprint. On the back side of the mirror, I decided to stamp little butterflies using the Aubusson blue paint. For the sides of the drawer, I imagined something like a wallpaper pattern. and I found this dandelion stencil from Prima Marketing in my stash, so I gave it a try. I used the Aubusson blue again and a small stenciling brush. And since I was in a stamping mood, I tried the rose ornament from the same stamp set on the inside of the vanity panels. I tried the Aubusson blue first, but I wasn't thrilled, so I restamped it in black ink. The stamping really didn't go the way I thought, and it turned me off of the project for a couple of days, until I got my muse back. Then I returned with the sandpaper. It didn't look as bad as I thought a week ago after all. I grabbed a light 240 grit sandpaper and distressed the whole surface, including the stamps and stencils. It blended everything very nicely and brought out more of the Aubusson blue. Then I wiped the dust off with a microfiber cloth. And the mirror feels like a child safety mirror foil. I'm definitely going to replace it with the real one, so I need to remove this. Let's try the utility knife first. Well, it's a bit thicker than I thought. But after getting the initial crack, I was able to pry it out piece by piece with the help of pliers and putty knife. Of course, I'm wearing safety goggles in case some chips go flying, which they did. I think it's time to start putting things back together. I went through my hordes of supplies and found some fitting hardware. I also found a piece of cardboard to space the side panels from the vanity so they wouldn't drag over the surface. The new hinges I have are a tiny bit bigger, but much sturdier. I'm going to use one set of the original holes and drill the other set to fit. I'm using metal drill bits because I couldn't find any woodworking ones this small. 1.2 is perfect for my tiny screws. I'm using my wireless drill on low speed and carefully drilling the missing holes. The metal drill bit works just fine for this sawdust board. I'm really thankful you are still with me. And if you haven't yet, please like and subscribe to my channel for more assorted videos. And check with me once in a while. It's very appreciated. Perfect. The hinges are surprisingly well made. I'll have to stock up on some more. They even hold in position. Now, I'm going to seal the whole vanity with Annie Sloan's clear wax, applying it generously, not skipping any details. Then I tone the ornaments down with dark brown wax, wiping away as I go. The clear wax is a great eraser. If you get too much brown, go over it with clear and it will be easy to rub off. I grunged up the whole vanity, mixing dark and clear wax. And don't forget to use a lint-free cloth for wiping. But there is more hardware to fit. I think this metal handle fits the drawer perfectly. But because the drawer is so thin, I'm marking the drill depth on my drill bit with a washi tape. Also, I'm not using the cordless drill, but my hand, to not punch all the way through. The drill bit is super sharp and the material is so soft, so it's very easy to drill. The little screws are attached too long, but they will work. And I'm going to cover the inside with the decoupage paper later anyway. Also, I can't imagine a vintage French vanity without little feet. If you are attaching little hardware with screws, always mark each piece to a specific place. Don't expect all the holes to be exactly the same on all the hardware. You might be gravely disappointed. Yes, it's finally getting the look. Vintage French screams gold to me, so I tested 3 different gold pastes on a sample ornament. White gold from Primo Marketing, antique gold from Pent Art, and gold leaf from Rub and Buff. And the winner is Rub and Buff. I think it fits this project the best. And don't forget to wear protective gloves. You don't want to soak up such chemicals in your body and get sick. I'm rubbing the gold paste over the ornaments to highlight the details. Also, I'm rubbing over the hardware to tie all the different metals together. I couldn't find any suitable decoupage paper for the little drawer that I'd like, and I was getting desperate. I didn't want to wait for a week for a piece of paper to arrive. When I was doing a major workshop cleanup recently, I discovered a whole package of vintage tissue paper that used to be used in typewriters for writing multiple copies at once. That would be perfect for decoupage paper if I could print on it. So I gave it a try. I printed some vintage French newspapers on a laser printer. It crumpled a few pages, but some came out alright. All I needed were 2. The paper is very thin, something around 40 grams per square meter, and it's similar to tissue paper. So I prefer to tear it over the edge of the metal ruler than to cut with scissors. The edges blend better that way. I'm gluing the paper with regular decoupage glue in sections, starting from the back side, which will be most visible, then the bottom, and then the front. I was missing a little piece at the top, so I just glued a separate strip there. It blended right in. Lastly, I glued 2 smaller pieces to the sides. I was intentionally leaving a little overhang all around the top edge, so I could later come in with fine sandpaper and cut the paper exactly on the edge. Then I sealed the whole inside of the drawer with a layer of decoupage glue. The Rub and Buff paste is really great. When it dries, you can buff it to how much shine you like. Now all that's missing is the mirror. I'm going to make a template by using plain copy paper. I run my finger around the inner edge to mark it on the paper. Then I traced it with a thin marker so it was more visible and took it to a glass shop where they cut a new 3mm thin mirror with a beveled edge so it wouldn't be sharp. As the new mirror had to be slightly smaller so it would fit well, I decided to paint the inner corner with the Aubusson blue so it would finish the look around the mirror. To glue the mirror, I'm using the One for All glue I had left over from my cloche project. Beware to use only glue that's safe for mirrors, or you might damage the mirror layer. And there it is, one of my many real trash to treasure projects.